Our last session of the day is going to be a panel discussion from one of our schools here in central Missouri that has implemented their concussion protocol, and we thought it would be nice for you to see how they've put it in place, and maybe you can have some questions for them or some things that they can answer for you. It's unique that Maureen usually writes the scripts for us for this, and they said that I should mention that we've worked really hard with this group, and we've known them for a long time. Well, I've known Ryan since he had diapers on, so he was a real small one at that time. But I'm going to turn this over to Blair Oaks and their athletic administrator, Ryan Fick.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Fick. I'm the athletic director at Blair Oaks High School. I've been there. This is my 10th year at Blair Oaks, 12th year as AD total. With me, I've got Julia Harrison. She is the school nurse at Blair Oaks, RN. And I've got Lacey Hale to my right. She's the athletic trainer at Capital Region, and that's who provides athletic training services for us at Blair Oaks. She's got a bunch of other letters behind her name that she would have to explain what they mean, but all those letters means that she's way smarter than I am. So it's always fun to be the last presenters of the day. I know everybody has been sitting here for a while, so we'll try to answer some questions here in a minute. Basically, what we have to talk about is probably a lot of what you've heard already today, and just maybe some confirmation on what you're doing in your schools, and compared to what we're doing. I think when it comes to concussions and brain injuries, it comes down to two areas when it comes to our student athletes and our parents. First of all is awareness. That the student athlete, especially because they're the ones that are in the spot to suffer the injury, and also the parents, and not only the student athlete and the parents, but teachers, coaches, school nurse, athletic trainer, everybody involved with the student athlete can identify signs and symptoms of a concussion. So what we do at Blair Oaks to spread that awareness is I will have a preseason parent meeting each school year. I have it in August, the week before fall practices start. At that time, there's a lot of school policy and procedure we talk about, but we also, one of the main components is concussion awareness. We will hand out the concussion packet that is made available by the Activities Association. And as you know, obviously the parents have to sign off on the physical form that they've received that information. So we'll talk about it there. Lacey will be at that meeting, and she will also talk to the parents and athletes not only about the services they provide to our athletes, but one of the main components is the concussion protocol and how we're going to handle concussions if they occur throughout our seasons. So we do that. Each of our coaches are asked to have a preseason mandatory meeting for their parents. It's sport specific, where they're going to talk about their policies and procedures for their sport, but they also are asked to talk about concussions within their parent meeting. So between my meeting and the coaches' meetings, every parent is getting that information and being made aware of the concussions and the signs and symptoms. I have, as most athletic directors do, we will have a mandatory coaches meeting for all district coaches before the school year starts. Another time that we talk about concussions and signs and symptoms, and then, as you guys know, all of the coaches are required to take the online concussion course through NFHS. So we do that as well. And then the last thing, or the other area that we feel is important, is the communication. And what I mean by that is once the head injury occurs, the communication at the time of the injury. If Lacey's present, say during a football game, and there's an injury, she assesses the situation and then communicating with the coach. And everybody's heard the saying, when in doubt, sit them out. That's big on the NFHS course. So once a concussion is diagnosed, the communication, there's different lines of communication. The communication between Lacey and the coach, the communication between Lacey and the parents, and then the communication with me to make sure I'm aware of the situation. Then it becomes an issue of when the student comes to school. Then that's where Julia comes in, and we communicate with Julia so we can keep an eye on that student at the school. And then what I've done in the past is I will meet with the student and get an idea of how they are as far as symptoms go, and then I email the teachers, his or her teachers, to make them aware. We've had situations in the past, obviously we've had some severe ones where one student in particular, it started to affect her. She was only able to go to school for a couple hours in the morning, and then she would go home. Her schoolwork had to be adjusted. There was a 504 plan put in place. So we've had those instances before, and everybody needs to be aware of what's going on and what needs to be done to help that student athlete. So parents, coaches, nurse, trainer, athletic director, teachers, so everybody needs to be on the same page. And we, before they are allowed to return to play, we require the form signed by the doctor on the backside of the MISHA packet, and I file those and keep track of those and make sure that we're all on the same page as well. I communicate with the coaches and the parents and the doctor as well. I know I don't have a lot of time here at the end. That's a very quick rundown. I guess the gray area is when a student athlete has multiple concussions and they're not all under our watch. Perfect example, last spring I had an 8th grader that came out for the middle school track team. Luckily, his mom called and communicated with me, but he had suffered multiple concussions. One concussion playing football the previous fall, and it was football that was not under our realm. And then he suffered another concussion wrestling for kids club, which was not under our watch. So that's the gray area, in my opinion, in keeping track of these concussions. So you really then have to rely on the physical form and the fact that when they answer the questions on the physical form, that they're being honest as far as head injuries go, and that you have a doctor that is backing those things up when they sign off on the physical. So that's where it becomes important to really pay attention to physicals. I know sometimes with the physicals and ADs, and we'll understand this, you just kind of feel like you're pushing paper and you're checking that they're there, but that is one area where it becomes very important that you glance at it, look at the health history, especially in the way of concussions, and make sure there haven't been any concussions that have kind of fell through the cracks, I guess, that weren't under your watch. So I guess we're at the point where if you got any questions, you can ask some questions, and between the three of us, we'll try to answer those. Or if you're really excited to get home.
Ryan, I actually want to know what your involvement is with your school nurse and how she sees the kids and or the parents and what she does with them. So
when we have a concussion that is diagnosed, and not even really diagnosed, but the symptoms, I communicate with her. We talk about, I give her the name of the student athlete, and it kind of goes along with the piece of notifying the teachers. She will typically, or I will typically, bring the student athlete in. She'll talk to them, and we'll send out an informative email to the teachers on what they should watch for, and then what they should do if they notice the student is having those symptoms or they're just not quite right in class. We've had times before where either the nurse has gone to talk to the student while in the class, or the student has gone to the nurse's office, and then we've communicated with parents if we feel a need to. We just had one a few weeks ago where a wrestler had a concussion and was diagnosed, and he ended up leaving early to go to a doctor the day after a wrestling duel, and he went into the doctor and then went from there. But that was kind of where the nurse came into play, is really in the academic side of things while they're in the school building during the academic day.
Any other questions from the audience before I start asking a bunch of them? Because I'm going to put them on the spot. Ryan, I know that you have a trainer. Your trainer probably does not go to all of your games. It's probably not at all your games, even home and away. Do you have some sort of procedure or something put in place to say you're going to an away football game and your trainer is not going with you, that you will agree to use the medical support staff that is there at the campus at that time?
We don't have anything written in place, but that is something we talk about as coaches frequently, is to defer to the medical personnel on site. And I think that's the safest thing as coaches and administrators. And is, as a coach, I also coach. I don't want to be the one, the old school philosophy of shake it off and get back out there is a thing of the past, I think. So I'll go back to the when in doubt, sit them out, defer to the athletic trainer or medical personnel on site, and then assess the situation the next day. And the communication piece with the parents, if the parents are at the contest, get them involved right away. If they're not involved, or if they're not at the contest, as soon as that contest is over, we're communicating with the parents. But that's something that we talk about as coaches all the time. I'm fortunate enough that I have a coaching staff that with a lot of experience, and we're all on the same page as far as that's concerned.
Do you let your parents know that at the beginning of the year, that when you're in an away contest, that if another trainer steps in and says, we're done, they're done?
Yeah, that our parents are aware of that, and that's something that Lacey does a good job of communicating as well with parents. Our parents are, in our school district, are very involved. They know that Capital Region is providing that service, so they take advantage of it.
I was going to say something on the athletic training side of that. When you are maybe at an event where another team is there that maybe you don't cover for that district, that when you see an athlete on the other team that maybe and this is not even concussion related, I would say make sure that you're maybe trying to communicate with the other trainer, if they do have one, that maybe just attends their home events. Actually, just not very long ago, the basketball team, the boys basketball team, had a kid that was injured, and one of the trainers, I've just met her from the football, the game, and she actually texted me. It was about 10 o'clock at night and just said, hey, just wanted to let you know that this happened with one of your kids, blah, blah, blah. And I just heard from Ryan a couple days ago, just, kind of following up with that athlete, even though I was not there. So it's a good idea to maybe talk to the coach of the other team and say, hey, do you have the information of the athletic trainer? Maybe get their phone number, call them, and just let them know what's going on with their athlete. That's greatly appreciated. So even though you're not specifically, you can build rapport with other athletic trainers to show, that, hey, thank you for watching out for my kids, and vice versa. So just want to.
Any questions?
There are in our area anyway, there are very few times anymore where we go somewhere that there is not an athletic trainer on site. So it's a great comfort as a coach, I know for sure, to have trainers on site. Very well appreciated. But I don't know if it's like that in all areas, but in our area it's becoming very common.
And that's one of the reasons we're having you fill out the concussion bingo thing today, because I will be going to Cape tomorrow, and I can tell you right now it's the exact opposite. You're going to have Cape Central and a couple other schools that are covered all the time. The rest of those schools, there's not a trainer ever there. We have schools that will play the entire season and never have a trainer at one of their contests.
To go along with what Lacey just mentioned, sometimes it's good if the athletic trainer actually takes time to introduce himself to the coach. If they're visiting and you realize they don't have an athletic trainer. That really helps break down that barrier. And the coach says, "Oh, I met this athletic trainer before the game. I know who he is," so he didn't think it's somebody just coming out of the stand. So
It's always good as a coach too, because my kids get a good tape job, at least on game day.
The other thing I would suggest there is that you're supposed to have a supervisor at your contest, and I think your supervisor should introduce themselves to the other school's supervisor, and at that meeting it should be said, "No, we do not have a trainer with us. Yes, you do. We'll use them," okay, or something along those lines so that you know what's going on.
Another thing that our hospital does, that's actually written in our contracts with all the schools that we cover, is that they are to announce during the event that the services are being covered by Capital Region. So they will know that someone is there. If we are not there, we're making sure to communicate with the AD to make sure that they know, hey, we're a phone call away if you need something. But that's actually announced to the entire gymnasium or anybody in the field, on the stands in the field and things like that. And I make sure that during events I'm always going across the field and introducing myself to the coach or the trainer if they have one. I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel home and away with football, so I'm at all of their games, which it's nice to keep just continuity that way. And that's basically just with varsity, but home games, I just covered JV and freshmen. So, but yeah, I just make sure to introduce yourself and make sure people know that you're there. And sometimes I'll even, the EMT staff during the football games know that we are there as well. So, and that they know that we'll call them if we need them. So.
My last question for you be, have you had any parents question the return to play or letting a student back in, or they wanted to get him in there quicker?
I would say, as far as I'm concerned and what I hear, and I'll let Lacey answer as well, it's typically more times than not they want them back quicker. And, that's when we refer to the form and we need a doctor signing off on it, or else they're not coming back. But, occasionally you do get the ultra conservative parent that the process strings out longer than it may need to, but better safe than sorry, I guess. So I'll let Lacey talk about that a little bit.
I've been pretty fortunate at Blair Oaks to, if I have, it's mostly the parents, I would say, that want the player back either quicker or, the coaches have been really great they trust my calls, and we do have a doctor that is on the sidelines for most of the games, home games usually for sure, and if I usually have any problems with parents, most of our, I'd say, parents know the doctor that's on the sidelines, so I can have the doctor actually call and speak with the parents too. And he's never, had an issue with calling and speaking with parents, just to err on the side of caution. I think sometimes you may need, unfortunately, somebody a little bit with more education than you talking with the parents, just to kind of give them a sense of, okay, maybe the trainer is doing what she's supposed to do. And that also kind of helps the parent know and trust me maybe later on that the doctor agrees with my call most of the time. So.
Doctor's going to sign off on the form. By procedure and state statute, Lacey, you can sign off on the form, but is it your school's procedure that the doctor will do it, or can you also sign off at your school?
I can sign off on it as well.
Any other questions? All right, let's give a round of applause.